Dr. Miller with a rant slash review of a journal review. So I'm going to mix these together. I'm going to try to get to the point here. The article is called Early Sport Specialization, Elite Weightlifters, Weightlifting Injury Occurrence, and Relevant Opinions. So here's the rant. Youth and barbell, youth and weight training, and weightlifting, powerlifting. So a quick story, right? A quick history. I'm reading a book called Strength Coaching in America. Great book. I'll do a review on it. It's just a history book. It's really fascinating, right? Some of the stuff I knew, some of it I didn't. It's really good stuff. But part of it, that book talks about the myths. Some, the early myths were that weight training makes you muscle bound and you can't move. I remember this, right? This was a big thing in baseball when I was coming up in the 90s. I'm not in baseball. I didn't play baseball. I mean, that was still a myth. Like, and then it turns out a couple guys started taking anabolic steroids and they hit like 70 plus home runs, and then hitting home runs around the planet, right? It turns out that being stronger even in baseball helps. So we have these myths. One of the myths too was that youth shouldn't lift weights. Well, over the years, we moved away from the epiphyseal plate fractures, growth plate fracture thing that turned out to be just a couple of case studies. And maybe, I think, this hypothesis, some doctors just like worried about kids getting smashed into barbells. And we've gone the other way through some good work by Avery Feigenbaum and some researchers that have pushed forward that, hey, kids can lift weights, which I don't disagree with. I think that's fantastic, right? Kids should lift weights. I think there's so many benefits associated with lifting weights. But my fear is we've gone to the other side. And I don't think everybody has, okay? To be fair, I think there's some great coaches out there. I think the majority probably are great coaches that manage this. But I want to kind of talk at this idea. If you're a parent or you're a coach or you're a young athlete, please heed these warnings. Just because you're allowed to do something shouldn't mean you should do it pedal to the metal. Youth, 17 and under, kids, 17 under, that's what I'm referring here. Just because you have a green light shouldn't mean you should act like you should train like an adult. Adults, like we have this discussion a lot in other ways. Kids are not little adults. And it's the same with weight training. Okay, this study I have, Early Sport Specialization, Elite Weightlifters, Weightlifting Injury Occurrence, and Relevant Opinions. It's a survey study. Survey studies have a lot of limitations, okay? Like you get some sample bias, all those things. But here is the kind of the breakdown. The kids that started early that were youth athletes, all right, when injury before the age of 21, they assessed injury before the age of 21, and injuries after the age of 21. So before the age of 21, there was 2 disc herniations, right? This is a group of, let me back up. This is a group of athletes that were surveyed, that were USAW surveyed. They were youth or junior athletes, right? And so they wanted to see, the authors wanted to see the injuries that occurred from these athletes. Now, again, you're going to get a sample bias. So anybody that's hurt is going to report, more than likely, because they want to tell you they got hurt. All right, so let's keep that in mind. Again, there's going to be perhaps a skewed sample here. All right, there are 141 surveyed. 18, let's see, let me get this right. So 16 of the 141 specialized in weightlifting during the youth age group. 18 of 141 specialized during the junior age group. Okay, and the remaining 107 did not report, excluding all their majors. So basically, again, we're looking at specialization of weightlifters. So 11% of the sample specialized as youth, and 12 as juniors 20 and under. Okay, so a little bit older. And these authors wanted to see then what was the injuries that occurred. And some injuries that occurred before age 21, like a broken rib, who knows what that was from, right? But herniated disc, microdiscectomy, right, disc issue, ACL tears, labrum tears, a couple of those were tears. Now, those numbers aren't as high, right? I mean, there's going to be injury in sport is what I'm getting at, right? Like, what's football's breakdown look like? Not very good, okay? But if you go when they're after the age of 21, now you got 5 labrum tears, 4 meniscus tears, 5 herniated back injuries, right? Diastasis recti, who knows if that's right? If you know what that is, that probably, again, we have a whole bunch of different injuries here that may not be related to weight training, okay? So overall, a small amount of injuries, okay? So make sure I frame this properly. Compared to other sports, a small amount of injuries, all right? But my concern is that we're not going to see a lot of these injuries because this is new. Like, really pushing kids hard is new. USA Weightlifting has done an amazing job of promoting their national meets. They made it attractive for youth athletes to go. And so now you have kids pushing. And my concern is that we're pushing too hard in some cases. There's too many coaches that are pushing hard. I'm not saying all. I would say the majority are not. But we need to be careful when it comes to barbell sports, keeping these kids in a place that they're making progression, but they're doing so behind the smash limit. I've just seen, I've seen some Instagram posts and things like that, these kids just getting crushed, Like, why? Can they be pushed? Of course. Will they fail? Of course. But how much they fail and, right, how much they, no, right? We need to be wise about this. Otherwise, we're going to see more, I believe, okay, hypothesis, we're going to see a lot more back injuries and disc injuries and, mostly spinal injuries that are going to be picking up in the coming years as a result of poor coaching early on, pushing kids too hard. So that's the barbell sport. This one's a little bit more of a problem. Okay, so going back to the barbell sport for a second, if you're a powerlifting coach in high school, make sure you educate yourself. Like if you have a powerlifting team, I know I'm sounding preachy, but I don't care. We're talking about kids here. Make sure you educate yourself on how to teach kids how to pull a bar. If I was a lower back specialist or shoulder, I would go down and hand my card out to the majority of the kids I see at these high school powerlifting meets. They're pulling weights that are pretty impressive, some of them, but their bodies are not prepared for them. You can see in the way they pull. They put a big belt on and they think they can crush world, right? And that's a problem anyway with anybody, but it's certainly a problem with young men. Need qualified coaching. I love that weightlifting is spreading. I see, like Florida's expanding. I think that's great. We just make sure you're a qualified coach and you know how to progress people and how young people should move, and be careful pushing them. Okay. My concern is you're going to see weightlifting start to incur injuries. Now, strength conditioning. Okay. So lifting for sports performance. Wonderful. Yes, do it. Here's my question. If you're a coach or an athlete even or a parent, the question is, can this athlete get stronger without using a barbell? I love the barbell, but the barbell is extremely restrictive in its movement. In other words, I can't hold it next to my side. The barbell kind of has command of the situation. And if you don't know how to leverage your body underneath the barbell and stabilize your body in order to move it, you can pick up an injury a lot easier than working with the dumbbells, or I love the hex bar. I think that should be a part of every youth program. So looking in the weight room then, let's say you're training for soccer or something, right, or just in general, there should not be an emphasis on the barbell. I'm just going to say that, right? Until the athlete is older and they've had experience working with other implements. And older meaning like later in high school. You go to like some of these high school weight rooms where there's the coach is up against supervision issues of like 30-1, 40-1, right? How in the world can you teach anything, right? Remember, teach anything correctly to have them squat heavy, okay? Be better to have them do split squats or hex bar work, again, where it's easier to see and the likelihood of an injury is much less. Egos are, yes, they can be challenging, like they can challenge things, but you're going to find that even if that happens, the chance of an injury is not going to be as high. Remember, the goal of strength conditioning is to help athletes run faster, jump higher, maybe get bigger if they're in a combat sport like football or rugby or something like that. But that's the goal. Okay, in terms of the performance side. On the other side, and probably the more important thing is, how do we keep them healthy? Can we reduce the likelihood of injury? And that's certainly not hurt them in the weight room. Kids will get stronger, especially the younger they are. They're going to get stronger fast, just like any untrained person is going to get stronger fast. So the need to use some of these, I would say, adult training, right, techniques and equipment is not needed. I don't think they should be on machines either, because most machines are not fitted for kids. But there needs to be proper supervision, and you can get a lot done with dumbbells with kids. They don't need to be crawling under barbells or pulling barbells off the floor. You could do it as a warm-up. You could teach them how to move, sure. But there is many other ways to get kids stronger without having to do that to them. So my advice, if you're a strength coach or get them out away from the barbell until they're late in high school, and that's assuming that they've been able to move correctly. Because you'd be surprised, a lot of these kids now cannot move really well. I've been shocked by this. I shouldn't be. There's a lot of sedentarism. Remember, we've kind of gone to this dual approach to activity. Either I sit around and play video games or go to school where they tell me not to move, and then I'm expected to do high performer sport, right? Like there's no in between for a lot of kids anymore. There's no outdoor playground. People don't grow up on farms anymore. Their neighborhoods are unsafe to play in, or they don't want to go outside or pick something. Okay. The point is that the kids are not ready to be loaded heavily. They can't even move properly. So why in the world would we try to load them with a barbell? We need to pick things that dumbbells, hex bars, things like that. That maybe even just a body weight, jumping drill, whatever. They may not be able to jump correctly either, but it needs to be some thoughtfulness in it. It's not just, well, let's just lift some heavy weights because that's what I do, or that's what I did in 1970-35. Who freaking cares what you did? Okay, these kids need a proper stimulus and applied in a safe manner. All right, that's a rant. That frustrates me when I see that. There's no need for some of this type of training with kids. It's some of the simplest training programs ever with kids. And they're going to get faster, and they're going to run. They're going to run faster. They're going to jump higher, and they're going to be healthier potentially on the fields. Right? So I would encourage. Last thing, specialization itself. So in this article, they asked these athletes should people specialize early, and so this is just, again, there's a lot of subcategories. And I didn't go into this research very deeply, and I'm not like hanging my hat on all this in terms of like this is where the rant's coming from. This just kind of triggered, this thinking that I had about youth athletes. I've been noticing this for the last few years now. Number of responses. So there's 24 that said yes. This is weightlifting now. Weightlifters should specialize early. 88 said no. 16 undecided. So 88 to 24, 16 undecided. Okay, so these are the athletes saying no. Athletes should not specialize early. I 100% agree with that. Now in the juniors, they asked the juniors that specialize, and 53 said yes, 63 said no. Not surprising. The older they got, the athletes said, yeah, it's time to specialize. Duh. The athletes know this. When I've had weightlifters, I have one right now. That's two young ladies actually. Okay, I want them doing other things. I want them to play other sports. They're like, oh, I'm sorry, I had to go swim. I don't care. Go swim. Right? We've missed some practices that were important for meets. Don't care. Go do these other things within reason, of course, within reason. But I mean, if they had a track meet, and it cut into one of their training days, go do the track meet. Do other sports. Weightlifting and barbell sports are year-round activities, and if kids love lifting, they're going to do it year-round, even if they're not in a barbell sport. It's good for them to get out away from the loading, right? Because there is no cycle, like there's no seasonal cycle. So go play soccer for 3 months. Hopefully, you don't get hurt doing that. But they come back to you as the barbell coach, strength conditioning coach. Okay, hopefully they're working with you a little bit. Fingers crossed, probably not going to happen. But they've been out from the weights from that period of time. That's a good break for them as youth athletes. So I encourage youth athletes not to specialize in weightlifting barbell early. I encourage them not to just lift weights. Do other things. Okay, don't. As much as I love the barbell and I love weight training, there needs to be a balance with youth athletes. And parents and coaches need to exercise a lot of caution in developing weight training programs for kids. I do think we're setting up a lot of these kids, and a lot is a bold statement. It's still going to be a small fraction compared to like maybe soccer, but you're setting up kids unnecessarily. How's that? To have back injuries and hip problems and shoulder problems because we expose them to heavy loading too early. Just because now it's like, well, it's okay. I've heard this many times. Well, it's okay. It's silly. This myth of lifting with kids has just been dispelled, and it's okay, true, but that doesn't mean that we go to the other extreme. Okay, we have to be thoughtful when we're working with kids. Just again, like in these other contexts that you can think of, when people say, well, they're I hear this in like early child. Well, they're not little adults. Fair enough. Well, we shouldn't do that same thing when it comes to weight training. Okay. All right, that's my rant. I'll put the link to the article. It's an interesting article. Again, I'm not. It is what it is, and the authors probably tell you this too. I don't speak for them, but it's just a survey it's an interesting survey of over specialization too early with weightlifting, and the potential injuries that could result. Again, if you think about the percentage, compared to other sports, I haven't had a chance to look at other sports. I'm sure that like with football and soccer, I'm sure the percentage of injuries are higher than weightlifting. But I think the point is if we don't have to have injuries occur, then why would we do that? If there's ways to get athletes stronger, why would we do that? Even weightlifters, if they're youth athletes, depending on how old they are, like my young lady who's 13, is there a way to get her stronger without the barbell in terms of strength work? She has a snatch and clean and jerk, sure, but there's a way to do it. And I'd like to think of myself as at least enough of a qualified coach that I can teach her how to snatch and clean and jerk properly. If I didn't know how to do that, I wouldn't teach her, right? And I think those are important points that I'm trying to drive home here. I'm sure it sounded preachy, but I'm okay with myself because we're talking about kids. Okay? We don't need to hamstring these kids unnecessarily, right? Even though you're going to find I could tell them a lot more stories, a young man that wouldn't listen to me when he was a youth athlete, kept grinding, and he ended up having surgery. All right? Again, as a coach, you can only do so much, and I know there's a lot of good coaches out there trying to slow athletes down too, but keep trying, right? Keep trying. Keep weight training in its proper context. Check your own ego as a coach and a parent, and as a youth athlete, if you listen to this, and make sure that you know what you're doing. If you're in a barbell sport and strength conditioning, you know what you're doing, but also, do I need to do things this way in order to see gains? Okay. And the answer probably is, if it's with a barbell, probably no, to be honest with you, especially if you're, a junior in high school or less, maybe a junior. Loading can be done other ways. That's a much more healthier endeavor. Not saying you can't use a barbell to learn how to use it, but heavy loading should be done another way. All right, that's it for now. Like this video if you like it. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Lots of other videos that are not as preachy. And I'll see you in the next one.